Hey folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. Keeping on and going strong since 2016. Dang, man. That feels longer ago than it actually is. You know what I mean? Weird. But I'm here. I'm still going. I'm still recording intros. I'm still doing my thing. Doing my best to, capture these conversations with people. We doing okay over there? We all hanging in there? I'm sure many of you are, because I've been hearing from you a lot lately. Holiday stuff, right? We're in full swing. I spent the weekend raking leaves. Doing real cool guy stuff. I'm trying to embrace some of that good old basic realities of owning a house. Like yard work. I think yard work sucks. I'm just going to be honest. But I'm dealing with grass and leaves. I'm also dealing with people texting me while I'm trying to record an intro. I'm going to leave this in because I love you. But I'm not responding to that text. Can't do it, man. I got to talk to y'all. But I will say, on the grass thing, I kind of want to be one of those folks in my neighborhood that just has AstroTurf or something like that. Or no grass at all. Maybe some rocks. And like a cactus. But it gets cold here. I don't know what I'm doing. The one thing is, I never got around to go in like full Clark Griswold. I kind of wanted to be the guy that had like holiday lights up, maybe a bow on a mailbox, but I can't do it. I don't know. I can't do it. But what I can do is talk to you about my guest this week, none other than musician. It's a special one, Pete Yorn. Pete is an incredible musician and songwriter. He's a dad. He's also, and I really like this, he's really embodied that classic yet humble rock star vibe, which is a very rare thing. I think some people, they're so insecure a lot of times, and I've learned this over the years talking to folks where they're just worried, so they really lean into the, like, I'm the cool guy. And Pete Yorn is just, man, he's just a dad. He's just having a great time. It's refreshing. Whether he's collaborating with Scarlett Johansson or cutting it up on stage, he's just the easygoing, humble dude. And it's great. Pete and I discuss his recent album, The Hard Way. We get some Dylan talk in there for you Dylan heads. I know there's that Dylan movie coming out, but we get into Dylan being a homebody, what he learned from REM's Peter Buck. Good, some real wisdom nuggets in there. Getting older and more. It's all in there. Let's go. A lot of stuff happening this week. We got new dye workwear, but right now we got Pete Yorn. Let's get to it.
I'm like hiding out in my room. I've been sick, so I'm just laying low.
You're sick?
Something got me this week, but I'm getting better. I'm definitely on the mend for sure.
You got the throat coat? I assume you've had to deal with your fair share of getting sick while touring or on the road.
Luckily, not too much, but it's happened, and it's really bad it's the worst when that happens. And we just went on the tour end of September, early October, and I hadn't toured in a while. It was my first like real tour in a long time. And like literally day 2, my guitar player is like deathly ill, like crazy fever, can't get up, like horrible. And we're all thinking, oh no, it's COVID. What is it? It wasn't even COVID. It was something worse than COVID.
Oh,
it was like and I was like, dude, what do you want to do? And he would just like sleep all day, and then he would somehow power through the shows. And then 2 days later, the drummer got it, and they had like high fevers. And we're like, what do we do? And we're like, we just powered through. And I got to give them credit. Those guys were badass. I don't know, like as sick as they were.
Yeah. Like
they seemed bad. Like they were like wiped out, like just down for the count. Like, not like just like a cold thing. It seemed nasty. But yeah, it's a drag, man. You got to think about your show. You're playing that night and you're sick. Stressful, because it's already stressful to be out there, for some people. For me it is, and just like worrying about if I could even get to the show without being sick, let alone being sick. It's like, oh man, just another layer of chaos that you have to work through.
How many dates were you on the road?
It was like 2 weeks we were out there, and I think we played like 9 shows or something. One got canceled because there was that big storm came through the south, and then ended up going way further north than it should have. But it canceled a show in Alabama that we were supposed to play, like a festival.
Oh.
but other than that, it was great. We came through St. Louis. That
Yeah.
was a really cool festival, and that was a good day actually. And luckily, you're just waiting. Like, am I gonna get it next? Am I gonna get it? And you don't. Luckily, I didn't, and no one else did. Just the two other guys in the band did. But you power through, and the tour was great. It was definitely a good get that muscle back. I haven't really used in a while as far as like touring with a band and stuff. As I haven't done much live performing at all since before
COVID.
since like since like 2019.
Yeah.
And so it was good to get back out there and know and see that you could make it through, and it's okay, and it's good to see everybody. So that was really good, just to like get out and revisit,
Was this your first tour for the Hardway stuff?
Yeah.
How is that playing that live? Because I've listened to the record and I've been a fan since Music for the Morning After, which still is on rotation. The song Easy is like my guitar warm up whenever I'm just like playing around.
Oh, wow.
And but yeah, the Hardway's it's a heavy record, man. There's some big stuff in there.
Yeah, I gotta say that those songs were like my favorite ones to play of all the songs. And people ask me like, "You ever get sick of playing, Life of the Chain?" Or and I was like, "No, I don't. I love playing those songs, But whenever we played a Hardway song, for some reason, just the way it would come together with this band, or just something about them, they all felt amazing. So I really liked. We were playing over half the record, I think, every night.
Nice.
So it was nice to dip into those songs, and they're always like one of my favorite parts of the show. And it's so cool to see people, react to the new stuff and see if they're getting it or not, and that was always good. But I don't know, they're just like where my head's at, and so they feel important songs to sing for me right now. Is what I want to say and where I'm at.
Yeah, how are you holding up?
I'm good.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm good.
Well, so I asked because the stuff about your fam and your dad. Like I lost my dad in May, and I definitely like dug into your record a little bit more. It's some good grief sharing.
Yeah, hey man, I'm sorry that you lost your dad.
It's all right. Yeah.
Same year. My dad's about a year ago now, but
yeah.
There's like I don't like to make a big deal about it, because everyone's part of life. If you lose, it's never easy. I assume,
Yeah.
and it's different for everybody. And some people have a much shorter time. Nothing's guaranteed. And so he lived a pretty long life. I would have liked more time with him, but he was really struggling in the last few years. And so, I didn't set out to write songs about him or anything like that. It just kind of comes out, like it always does. And then when kind of the context you're living in or whatever is going on in your life, you start to see those threads in the songs. And so it was obvious at some point. Some lines in there were definitely for him, and
yeah. Is that how you write? Because you've done, how many albums have you done now? It's like 8, 10 or so. Geez, even more than that. I'm looking at it.
Someone told me that was my 10th like solo album. But there's more.
Yeah.
There's more like collaborations and
the thing with Scarlett and yeah.
Yeah, there's two with Scarlett. There's an Olms record with J.D. King, and just some other little tidbits here and there that been sitting on. That was my 10th studio record that came out, I think.
And this was done through was this maybe one of the ones that was a little bit more through like text messages and voice memos in terms of writing your stuff? Because I imagine you probably weren't doing that as much, for, I don't know, Simonize or stuff like that.
Well, yeah. Well, this started that way because it started with my old friend Josh Goodwin texting me.
Yeah.
Who was like my main collaborator on this project. He just texted me out of nowhere. I hadn't heard from him in a long time, and he said, "Hey man, I've been playing a bunch of acoustic guitar, made me think of you, and just have some ideas. I'll have to bounce off you." I was like, "Sure, man." And we just kind of reconnected that way, and then it just became like we started getting together, and he has a great studio over at Henson on La Brea, and it's the old Jim Henson Studios where the Muppets were happening. It's a good music studio now.
So cool.
And he's got a little mixing room there. We would just hang out there, play guitar, and work on songs, and we were having a good time, and it just became a record. It was just really fun to work together.
Yeah. How often, I mean, because I ask a lot of other musicians about this too. It's like, how often do you just like pick up the guitar and noodle and play, or does it feel like work, or like I got to write a song? But like, how often is it just like I'm bored, I'm just gonna strum some chords?
Yeah, it's never like I gotta write a song. Sometimes it's like a challenge, like, all right, I bet you can't write a song, for fun.
Yeah.
But I never put myself in that place. Like I've never had that work ethic about it. Like you hear about these people like in Nashville who are really organized,
Yeah.
and they look at it like going, like, I'm just gonna go to the office every morning and I'm gonna meet with people and I'm gonna reach out to as many people as I can and we're gonna write songs on it. And that's just not my thing. I'm not into I mean, I'd probably write a lot more songs and maybe better songs if I did that. But I'm just, I don't know. It's just it's not the way I do it.
Well, there's more soul to your stuff. I mean, I feel like, as a person,
I don't, I'm not judging it or nothing like that. It's not what I'm saying. Let me be clear. Like, it's just not who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just not that organized, and I pride myself in that. I guess I don't know. Or I refuse to be because it's rock and roll. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, and maybe that holds me back. But I never get myself in a position where there's ever this idea of like writer's block or I can't write a song, or that's all bullshit. I think that's your own people's own selves getting in their own way, and it's usually some wrapped up in judgment, stuff like that. Like, listen, I'm not going to say I write a better song than I wrote yesterday or tomorrow right now, but you never know unless you try. So I just think you just got to just like pick up a guitar and start strumming and see what's going to come out and not get too caught up in like judging yourself about it if this is the greatest song ever or not. It's really about the process. That's one thing. It's like people keep talking about AI and how AI is going to write songs for people and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't really care about that. That's great, man. I hope people have fun with that. And I hope that inspires people. But the matter of truth here is that no one is ever going to take away my experience of writing the song, my experience of wanting to write the song and how that feels for me. And that's all I care about at the end of the day. So that doesn't worry me, and as far as back to your original question, like I keep guitars. I have guitars like in their cases, like my tour guitars, they stay put away.
Oh.
And I don't mess with them. Like the J45 Gibson, that's like my main acoustic guitar. It's a magic guitar. And I never really have to even tune it for a 2-hour show. It's just magic usually. I keep that locked away, hidden. But my day-to-day guitars, I keep them just sitting up against the fireplace. And I always tell kids, my friends, they're like, oh, I want to get a guitar for my kid or whatever. Which guitar I get? It's like, any old guitar works as long as it's decent. But they get it and immediately just put it in their case and it sits in the case. I'm like, it can't live in the case. It's gotta sit out by the couch, leaning up against. It's got to get kicked a little bit, and it's got to be in arm's reach at all times because you got to be able to just grab it and just start strumming it while you're watching, a TV or whatever you're doing, And problem is, not many kids are watching TV anymore. I think they're on their iPads or phones. Back in the day, you'd sit watching shows or football games or whatever. And I would just have the guitar in my hand and just be strumming around. And I never thought of it as practicing. I always just thought of it as just playing for fun because I liked it, But also I'll go weeks sometimes without really picking up the guitar, and I regret that. But I do like a break. Like sometimes I don't even listen to music for a while. I'll just listen to like Howard Stern or or nothing, and but then when I go back to it, I find it always inspires me. It always reminds me of how important music is to me and how it gets inside, my whole being and how it affects me. Music always affected me in a heavy way, and it's always important to kind of reach back out to it. It's like that, a thing where you're reaching out. That old painting, I think it's in the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah, with Michelangelo's touching God.
He's reaching out, but man is reaching out, and God's reaching out, and you can't expect it all to just come or always just to be there. You gotta meet it halfway sometimes, and it's a lovely thing. Music, it's one of the greatest gifts that I have in my life, and I'm happy that I'm able to do things with it, you know? So,
well, and I think you've built a career long enough, at least for people like me, where like there are certain songs that like you've written that I can't hear without like experiencing different levels of like memory playback. Like I remember when I first was trying to write music. I mean, I was in a band for a long time, and my dad was a musician for a long time and stuff. And I remember hearing "Lose You," and like it freaking knocked my socks off because this was around the time where I think like Howie Day and some other people were doing really cool stuff with, you know, drum tracks and acoustic, and there was like a juxtaposition of things, but there was like, you know, a lot of your music has always had like very good grooves attached to them, but it's always got like a heavy emotion into it. And so like hearing certain stuff, and even, you know, on this new record, The Hard Way, like there's things that like I'm listening to that are, yes, it's music and it's your memory and it's the stuff that you're processing, but it's like I'm kind of like taking it and it's now being attached to my own memories and my own things. And look, that sounds somewhat trite, but like I think you're only a handful of artists, which is why I was like super amped to talk to you, that has had music like that in my life. You know, I don't know, Blood on the Tracks maybe, but like there's key things in there. Yeah.
let me straighten you out. First of all, there's nothing trite about anything that you said.
Okay.
and what I'm going to tell you is that even for me, songs that I wrote 25 years ago, you know, 30 years ago, that sometimes I knew what they meant in the moment. Sometimes I had no idea what they meant.
Yeah.
But they felt right. And I was always about a feeling, you know?
Yeah.
More than anything, more than the words, it was just how did the overall thing make me feel? And that's what I liked. But there are songs from back then that, you know, maybe they meant one thing. And then like today, something will be going on in my life and it's just like plugs in to a whole different experience and a whole different meaning. And it's almost like a eureka moment where I'm like, whoa, that song's about that now.
Oh.
And so I love this idea, and I've experienced it, that these songs that I've written, that they grow with me and they grow with other people, and they have, maybe there's a memory like attached and they're stuck in that moment in time, but then all of a sudden something can flip and you see it in a new way and it means something new. And I really like that about songs. And even, you know, philosophy too could do the same thing. You know, you could read it when you're a teenager and you kind of attach to something, and then you could revisit it again now and you're like, has a whole nother resonance.
Yeah. What have you been digging into then, like post not music stuff, to kind of, I don't know, process? There's a lot of stuff that's happened lately. I'm curious how you've just been processing it all.
Yeah. Well, everyone's got a lot of stuff to process, you know, in different ways.
Yeah.
But I love that guy Bob Dylan. I sure loved his writing. I keep going back to that Chronicles book, and I read it when it first came out. In Chronicles Volume 1. There's so much to digest in that book that I loved it years ago, and then I found it again and read it a few months ago, and now I'm reading it for like the fourth time. And I just savor it. I only read a little bit at a time. I'm not like a really fast reader. I've never been. And that's another thing that, you know, I should read more, because I love it. Every time I get into it, I'm like, man, it's such a great, it's the most bang for your buck you can have. It's like paper, paper and a book. And it's like, you know, it costs nothing to get a great book. And all the time you spend reading it is hours of enjoyment, you know?
Yeah.
Especially when you get into it. But, yeah, he's just such a great descriptor and writer. I wonder, like, is he just making stuff up? How could he remember all this stuff? He remembers the details of rooms in 1964 in New York City that he walked into and everything that was on the walls. And I'm like, he's just got to be making some of this up. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter, because it's just poetry, even though it's not supposed to be poetry, or maybe it is. But there's just the way he tells a story and the way he sets up a scene is just magical. And I just been really, it's been a really nice place to visit with that book over and over. I just love it so much.
I've been on such a Dylan kick, and for a long time, I would only kind of like, the latest I would get would be New Morning. Like I would basically stop at 1970, 71 or whatever it was. And a few friends, you know, we would always just like joke about different like Dylan takes. And he's like, dude, you got to get into Time Out of Mind. I was like, no way. Crap album. No way. I'm not going to listen to it. And maybe like a few months ago, I finally dug into Time Out of Mind, and it just hit me so hard. I've listened to it for 2-3 months straight. Just it's on in the car, like by default. It's on my walks, and and I'm just like dissecting it more and more because it's such an interesting part of his life when he was like, I mean, basically everyone's like, you're over. It's you're not going to make that music again. All people wanted was, something from, I don't know, either Blood on the Tracks or something like that. He didn't have the band, he didn't have anything, and he just makes one of the most brilliant pieces of music that's like also vulnerable about life and death and weighing like whether or not people care about him or remember him. And I can't stop listening to it. It's so fucking good.
I mean, I remember when that record came out, as that's the one that's like, it's getting dark, but ain't there yet.
Yes,
yes,
yeah, 97.
I think that one it won like album of the year.
Oh yeah,
record or something.
Yeah.
It was like a big record. It's funny as you were talking, it made me think. It's like I'm talking about Dylan, and how much I love him. But it's funny, like I'm not talking about listening to Dylan. I'm talking about reading Dylan.
Oh,
and of course I love Bob Dylan, listen, but I haven't been listening to him. It's more just I'm reading that book. I'm loving his writing, his book writing.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but I probably should listen to some more Dylan. Like actually do the listening to the Dylan too while I'm reading it. It could be fun.
I think because I read it wasn't his book, but it was. I mean, I got into during the pandemic. I just got into a bunch of like different authorized biographies. Like I'd read McCartney's authorized biography. I read some of the Beatles stuff, Paul Simon's, and just like musicians and people. My dad used to play a bunch with Dan Peake of America, and I read like his book, and I read a lot of other stuff. But with Dylan's stuff, I mean, I didn't have a full understanding of everything. And so I just started like forcing myself to listen to the music to be like, okay, if this was going on in his life, what was the songs that was coming out from him because of that, and you hear a lot of, I mean, music business was not great. Dude had a manager who's taking his money, had a horrible bike accident, didn't know what he was going to do, started painting. I mean, all sorts of stuff. And I think sometimes, this is one of the reasons why I love talking to musicians, because I think fortunately and unfortunately, the life of a person who makes art, a lot of times when they make their art, they, have no choice but to let go of it because so many people end up experiencing it. But you still remember that that's a person and a person's life and all those things that had to exist for that person to feel, in an environment where they could make that art, and I think especially, to be honest, I mean, to go back to your record, I mean, that was one of the things that I connected more with your record because not just like, oh, it's a catchy song. Oh, that's a good line. But like, no, like he's going through or has gone through the same stuff that I went through. So like, I feel a little bit less lonely or less, crazy or whatever that is. And I think I don't know any other type of art form that can happen with, maybe like painting or so, but not with movies, music is still that it's the most pure and important thing to me.
Yeah. So much is like, there's this pull sometimes I would feel on certain songs to expose myself more. It's like, and it's a vulnerability, and then you hope that, and then there's like the other side of you that wants to protect yourself in that way, and just not be so forthcoming about things. And I've messed around with both kind of different ways of writing or expressing myself, and some stuff is very autobiographical and stuff isn't, a lot more observational, and people might be surprised at which is which at the end of the day. But, I do find sometimes I do have a pull to put some things out there that I went through or that I experienced in my way, because I do hope that it helps people. You never know what someone's going to relate to. People hear things different ways all the time. There are things that surprise me over the years. They hear a lyric and it means I never talk much about what my lyrics mean to me because I never want to ruin for someone else what it means to them,
Right. Yeah.
And so, and I've experienced that. And so, but there is this thing about wanting people to relate to you so that they can know that they aren't alone, like you said. And I know that people have gone through stuff and can power through or can make it through, And so I like, especially when what you could get from it is that you don't have to be scared, or you know that that there's light at the end of the tunnel, or that you could that give people hope. So that's something that I feel is a wonderful thing about music and all art in general, when you just could connect in that way.
Yeah. I think also, like, when you look at like what the kind of legacy that you make for your family, right? I mean, not to get all crazy, but I mean, when you see someone leave and you see what they left you with, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not. Like, I have all of my dad's music, and I've been going through it and like trying to understand things through different ways. Where I'm like, oh, dang, was he feeling that? Like, and I'm grateful that even though things were not ideal, and he's gone, and it was not ideal how he was gone and the age that he was gone, et cetera. I'm like, okay, there's some stuff out there that I have that in many ways kind of lasts forever. I mean, I can listen to these songs. I can nitpick why he used an M1. Well, why did he use a DX7 on these things, or whatever sort of things that in there, but it's like I'm grateful for that stuff. And I think in your case, whatever happens, I mean, you have just a incredible catalog of life and memories that not just your own family get to experience, but also other people. I don't know, and I think that's stuff I think about a lot. It's probably why I connect to Dylan so much too, because the dude was making music in the early '60s, and here we are in 2024, and he's still touring, and he's still making stuff. And so you're like, what a life, Obviously, I don't have a house in Malibu, but there's stuff there that I can connect to still.
Yeah, and he's unbelievable that he keeps getting out there and going, and it's a choice. Like I think about it.
Wait, hold on a second. Okay, before you send that DM or text that friend, I know what you're thinking. You're ready to buy your first serious watch, or in other cases, maybe your fourth or your fifth. But look, man, it's hard out there. It really is. From this dealer or that store that wants the purchase history or whatever. I mean, you're just, I don't know, you're almost ready to walk away from the whole game. But fear not, my friends. Check out Bezel. Bezel is the trusted marketplace for buying and selling your next luxury watch, with expert in-house authentication on every purchase. With over 18,000 watches listed right now, as of the time I'm recording this, from a mix of professional dealers to private sellers, you're just going to find what you're looking for. But wait, I know. You're like, Jeremy, I'm sorry. They don't have that X Rolex or that insane Omega. Well, reach out to them. Bezel has a real team of real people. Just create an account and be connected with a private client advisor, and they will guide you through the entire process every step. Once you decide on your watch, it's overnighted to Bezel HQ, where their in-house team of experts authenticate it, and then it's on your way to you. If anything is amiss, the watch is not listed correctly, whatever it is, they'll let you know, the buyer know, and the offer to refund you or source you a new one at a similar price. That's pretty good, right? This has been part of the Bezel ethos since launch. I've even spoke to the founders about it. And now you can make an offer on a watch, buy it outright, or bid it at auction. Bezel is the highest rated watch marketplace out there. Even Trustpilot shows Bezel is 4.9 out of 5 stars with rave reviews. Okay, you're still on the fence? Dig into the Blamo feed yourself and listen to my chat with the Bezel co-founders and, well, see for yourself. But you got this. I believe in you. Visit getbezel.com and buy and sell your next luxury watch. That's getbezel.com. Getbezel.com.
I think about how I used to tour, before I was married and before I had a kid, and there was a big that was all that mattered back then. It was all and it just seemed natural. It was a lot of fun, and it was just getting out there and just doing the job, but it was the greatest job you could ever have.
Yeah.
But then at a certain point in my life, I remember maybe I'm just like, I have a lot of traditional or old, I don't know if it's traditional or what you would call it these days, but I just really felt the urge just like to want to be able to settle down. Like I felt like I want to be able to have a wife and kids or a kid, and because I felt like if I went too far, I had a fear that if I went too far down that road where I was going of this touring, that I would never be able to pull back from that. And I'd never be able to come home and just have a normal, simple life. And so at some point, I really wanted to work on that. And I pulled back, and I was like, I'm going to focus on having a really good relationship and being able to get married, because I was so scared to get married. And I had to really work on that. And it was important to me. I felt like I'd end up alone if I didn't do that. I felt like like I was going to miss out on this amazing part of life. And I'm so happy that I did, because like I said, I don't know if I could have. I think I was close to not being able to come back. It was really hard to pull myself back and be able to settle back into normal sort of existence. And yeah, now I've been married. It's going to be 14 years. And
Congrats.
14 years in about 2 weeks. And it's the greatest move I ever made. I had the greatest wife. I'm so grateful for that. And she gave me the best daughter. And we got a little dog, and I'll tear up thinking about it. But I was like, thank God that I've had that instinct. It was just an instinct. It was a pull. No one was telling me to do it. No one, my mom wasn't like, Peter, when are you going to settle down? It wasn't like that. It was none of that. It was just, it was something in me. I think I just wanted it. I wanted to have all of it. And so, yeah. And for a long time, she was on tour with me before we had our little girl, and we had made touring even better. We had a great time. And maybe we'll do that again one day, but now we're in that kind of middle zone where it don't make sense. But I still do love getting out and playing those shows and doing that. And now I can it grounds me. I can go out there now, and I know I have this home
Yeah.
to come back to, and I feel more grounded out there. And I quit drinking about a year and a half ago, and that at first, getting back on stage after that was like, holy shit, that was the scariest thing I had to do, because I didn't realize how kind of much I needed it. I really needed it, and that's why I knew I needed to stop, because it wasn't working anymore. It was like the Richard Ashcroft, the verbs on the drugs don't work.
Yeah.
It just wasn't working no more. It was going down a dark road. And so I got that going for me too. And this tour was extra special because of that. I was like, all right, you're going to get up there, you're going to do this. You're not going to, you're going to do this in a new way. And it's so much more interesting to me now at this stage in my life, after doing it a certain way for so many years. That's kind of what the hard way comes out. It's like, sometimes you got to take that hard road, but you get the benefits are there. The easy way, doesn't work after a while. It's like you're taking shortcuts, it's not working. You got to go down the hard road and really work for it and earn it. And so that's a lot of this chapter for me is just like personal triumphs and just personal, like weighing myself against who I was before and what I'm able to do, and just trying to break through, to next level, humanness. And
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it's hard, but it's really rewarding, because I feel really proud and happy for, simple things when I get home and when I pull it off. So it's an interesting thing to experience.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm sure you're finding that at least, your fans want that for you. Your fans want the best for you. And if that's what you want, like, I think you should embrace that. And I think ultimately, maybe you won't know until it's, in hindsight, you'll be a better musician and a better artist, because now you get to write about this whole other experience, and it's what you love. I mean, in most cases, especially a person like the individual I was just mentioning to you, like, it was their own like love and desires of what was going on that created an environment for them to make music that everyone loved. And so if you are now like feel trapped in this world where you're like, well, I can't go to what I really want because I'm stuck with my fans, like, what sort of, artist will that, make you? And I think that's a rhetorical statement, obviously, but like, that's the amount of people that I think are championing what, Pete Yorn 2.0, 3.0 wants to be, and the music that you're making because of the decisions that you made for yourself. I hope you're feeling the response that at least I'm giving, as a fan of your music for so long. It's like that. Hell yeah. You want that person to be happy. Like, you're not out there dunking on everyone and like giving a finger to the world. Like, you're doing what feels right, and you're able to make music that people still love from it. And I hope that's like a good validation testament to like what your intuitions were, and that was good that you followed them.
Yeah, I think it's like a sad thing sometimes when, like, maybe someone, it gets introduced to the world at a young age, and I understand how they could feel pressure to kind of, there's pressure to reinvent yourself, and then there's pressure to like not to just be how you were, know? And some people, like, I feel like with like back in the day with like pop acts or boy bands or whatever, like, even the Beatles or, obviously they all eventually had relationships and did their things and moved on. But like early on, I feel it's like, oh no, like we want the kids to think that they belong to them,
Yeah.
and there's this kind of like just keep everything else kind of low, and so I can understand that pressure. And I also understand just when you get used to living a certain way, listen, relationships aren't for everybody at the end of the day,
Sure.
it's not. So I'm not going to say what works for me is going to work for somebody else, but I'll say that when you're used to like living a certain way, it gets harder and harder. And they say, and the older you get, if you go too far a certain way, it's unlikely you're going to change, or you're unlikely you're going to be able to, you might be able to, but it's going to be harder to create a new groove and go get into that groove. And you'll have to really want it for yourself. No one's going to make it happen for you. You're going to have to really want it to do it,
Yeah. Yeah. I think about that stuff a lot, it's like even Dylan, like, well, do you think maybe he wants to just go and paint, or does he feel that he's got to go tour forever? I mean, he just sold his catalog, he's got money forever, but he's still touring. But I don't know, maybe it's because he feels like there's still people like me that want to see him again in the various states, but I don't know.
I don't know, like everything I know about Dylan, or what I've been reading, like I feel like it's got to be, and I don't want to assume anything, but I feel like he's not doing it for us.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah, you're right.
We benefit from it, and people benefit from it, but it has to start something with him that he just needs to do for whatever reason, or he thinks he needs to do for whatever reason. And that's for him that, kind of, I don't know if he'll ever lay that out there because he's a mysterious cat, but I think, all good, doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as, people are out there, and he inspires at the end of the day. Bruce is out there too. He's just like Bruce. I feel like, yeah, he's out there for us, but he's doing it. He needs to do it for whatever his psyche is that makes him have to always go the extra mile, always go, the 3-hour show and just show up, to support everything, that's great. He's just that kind of guy, but within doing that, if he needs to do it for himself, for his own, for something in his own psyche that just makes him like himself more, to do that, which is great. We all benefit from it. And I remember when I met Bruce for like the 4th time a few years ago, I had just seen him on Broadway. He had just done like that long Broadway run, and it was so amazing.
Great show, yeah.
And I remember after the thing that came to mind to say to him was just thanks for your generosity, man. Just, because when like how this started, this little tangent we got off on, we were talking about Dylan and how he's still torn. And I think about that, and there's something romantic and cool about that. But at the same time, I know what it takes, and you have to, you could lose some of the things that ground you as well, if you want to just keep out on that road life. You know what I mean? So it's a choice, I think. And it's hard to balance both. Maybe you can do it. Maybe some people can do it. And there's probably ways to do that. But it definitely takes effort, I think. And it's a choice, and to keep a simple life together as you will as well.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, your philosophy and insight on all this stuff is, I mean, there's a ton of wisdom, obviously, which I'm not that surprised by that we've been chatting. Do you ever see yourself, or do you currently like mentor other artists or teach other musicians or people in terms of balance and songwriting and what feels good?
Like not actively, but just the people in my life, if they are just talking to me about something, I can tell that they're looking for direction. I'm happy to offer it, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not that organized.
Yeah.
I do feel like it is important, like I said, like Bruce's generosity and Dylan, like all these things that we benefit from other people's artistry and other people's kind of choices that they make to keep going out there. I feel like, I mean, what are we all here for at the end of the day? Nothing's guaranteed. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. And when I do find the tendency in myself to kind of, be a little bit too much of a homebody, or, because I'll say no to everything. Like, no, I'm not going. Like, there's so many things that I won't even say, but like people invite me to, or feeling, I'm just like, nah, I just want to hang out at home just chill. And my favorite thing is driving my daughter to school every morning. You know, I gotta be up at 6:45, and that's why I'm not missing that. And if I go to bed late, and I'm gonna be swagged out all day. So that's my thing. So, you know, I keep it simple, but at the same time, I do have to make sure that I find balance where I do get myself out there and force myself out of my comfort zones and get out there, because I think that's important to do, and important for me, and I think ultimately will be important for other people too. So I got to do that.
Yeah, I mean, what's your average evening then these days if you're being a homebody? Is would you rediscovering Sopranos or something like that, or?
No, I usually fall asleep pretty quick. It's usually like grab my daughter from school in the afternoon, and we come home. She usually likes to stop off. She wants to get like an acai bowl or boba tea or something like that. So maybe like 1 or 2 days a week we'll pop in and grab that, and then we come home. Now she's starting to get a little homework. She reluctantly does it. We got to like make her do it, but it's a new habit to build. But we're like, letting her learn the benefits or consequences of not doing that naturally. I'm not really like leaning in too hard on her. And then we would walk around. She just has a scooter or a bike. We'll take a bike around the block, which is great. And that's like awesome. My favorite time of the day. Like, I think about that. And, I'm like, this is like, I wouldn't trade this moment for anything. And if 50 years from now, I look back and think about going around my block with 9-year-old Yorn, as the sun's setting on her scooter, it's like, this is the greatest moment of my life, And so, and then we come home and it's like, take a bath, shower, watch a football game. And then it's like, shut down, go to sleep. I'm in bed by like 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. And I try to watch a show on my phone. And as soon as I was like, 10 minutes in, I'm start falling asleep, and I'm like, all right, I'm out. And then I get up again at like 6 a.m, do it all again. And it's simple, but I really like it. But at the same time, I like to do other fun things too. But Halloween was great this year. That was really nice.
Did you dress up?
Yeah, I was a burrito. I had this costume.
Apropos.
Yeah, in the old wink there.
Yeah.
But I had this burrito costume hanging in my closet for a couple of years. I figured I might as well wear it again. My daughter was a witch, and my wife was she looked like she belonged at like the Renaissance fair or something.
That's
some
cool.
Sort of like a witchy princess thing. I don't know, but it was nice. And yeah, I listened to I wasn't aware of your podcast before, and I saw that we were going to talk, and so I wanted to listen a little bit, and I listened to some of the Tim Heidegger one.
Yeah.
That you did with him. What a great guest to have, I'm a big fan of his. And it's funny to hear, he's so deadpan in his comedy.
I know.
And, often. And it's funny to hear him just straight Tim Heidegger talking about music. But it was very cool to hear and listen to him in that way. But I'm a big fan of his, and you guys had a great conversation.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I got a little bit of blowback on that one from, because the show is, I've been doing this for almost 9 years now, and the show is grown in a good way that it's not as narrow as it used to be of just kind of like more fashion stuff. I was a musician for a long time. I worked in the music industry for a long time, and talking, to all those in this variety of people is important to me. And it's, and people are into it, but for the Tim heads, people were like, why wasn't he making jokes? Why didn't he do this? And I usually respond to most of the emails that I get. And I responded to one of them, and I don't mind like leaving this, on the record. But like, I was like, he was himself. People need to, actually be who they are and just be, I think sometimes people get Tim Heidegger as a prime example of a person who is a personality and a performer, but was so and is so good at it that so many of his fans can't see the individual behind the performance. And often that it almost backfires, not to his fault, but because it's what people want. And I'm like, the dude is a guy who's got a kid. He fears for the world like anyone else. And he loves Randy Newman. And like, isn't that great? Like, isn't it great that like this is that honesty and that beauty in there, and also, admitting to things that he likes and what he wants to work on. I love hearing any person talk about stuff that may not come as easy to them, because it makes us a little bit more closer together, than versus someone who's just their life is perfect and everything's perfect. And it's like, well, I guess this conversation's over. You've never had anything bad happen to you. There's nothing we can empathize on. Heidegger was great, but I responded back to that email and was like, dude, like, let artists be artists, man. Like, he's not your monkey, and I loved that pod, but yeah, thanks for saying that.
Yeah, no, I think you set it up right out the gate. That I
was trying to, yeah.
Tim has a new record out. He's going to be talking about this, and I know he takes his music seriously. It's not,
yeah.
And it was cool to hear about his process and everything. It felt actually it was very relatable.
Yeah.
But I also watched. It made me think just something you said. Just yesterday I was in bed, because I was sick and just laying low, and I watched this Liam Gallagher documentary.
Okay.
As you were,
yeah.
I think or as it was.
Yeah.
As it was, and it was, like, I'm a big Oasis fan from back in the day, and the documentary basically covered his like Oasis, the time of period where Oasis kind of abruptly broke up, and then him kind of getting his footing, and ultimately having a major comeback as a solo artist. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, I always, Liam and Noah are ultimate characters.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're hilarious. Whether you love them or hate them, they're characters, and they're always interesting in some way. And I'm trying to put my finger on what is it about Liam Gallagher, this fucking guy Liam Gallagher that is so interesting to people, including myself.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I was like, he's brutally honest. He doesn't give a fuck, which made me think about someone sending you an email complaining about your interview with Tim Heidegger. Fuck you. Okay, first of all, you go interview Tim Heidegger.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. But second of all, at the end of the day, Liam, I was just like going back and forth. I was talking to my friends about him, sending voice memos, like, what? I was like big Oasis fans, and like, what is it? Like, because I'm not even that familiar with his solo music, to be honest. I'm not like, but I see that he just seems to just get by on pure swagger and attitude, and it's like, that's inspiring in itself. And I was like, at the end of the day, the documentary shows him with his kids and his family, and it's endearing. And you realize he's a good guy. At the end of the day, he's a good guy. He's brutally honest, and I think the main thing is he has this confidence that he just pushes shit through. And even if he didn't have success, he finds a way to get success, and that's inspiring. And I think that's what inspires a new generation of kids who are very into him right now. And so, as a human, I found the documentary good. I found it inspiring, and he's a boy man, kind of like he's like a grown man, but he has this boyish thing that is endearing, and that's why people love him. And he doesn't edit himself, he doesn't limit himself, and he could be offensive to some people sometimes, but at the end of the day, you can tell he's a good guy. I
mean, I'm super fired up for the Oasis reunion. It's going to be crazy because those guys, I think, just got, hundreds of millions of dollars just dumped in front of them like a wheelbarrow. But they're one of the bands, Oasis, and maybe a band like Radiohead, into which I don't think I'll ever understand their behavior, what they're trying to do, their mindset, their process on everything. But their music is so much like woven into my life that it's very hard to not seize every opportunity to experience it. I mean, I just saw The Smile in St. Louis, of all places, at like a 2,000 person venue, and I mean, I was like in tears through half the performance just to see such amazing musicianship. And I mean, their music, I mean, I don't know, playing in and out of 7/3 time signatures and stuff like that is maybe not for everyone, but seeing and getting to experience that, and knowing that like Tom York is just Tom York, I love it. I mean, and I think like that's kind of a thing now. I mean, not to zoom out more, but like where I feel like some artists don't feel empowered enough to be themselves, or become so wrapped up in like some sort of personality that they're scared to try to be themselves from it, and I think that's a tough part, especially when all artists now have to like have social media accounts and make videos about how they want to order their pizza or whatever it is, and it's like, just let them write a song.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother thing. But I will say that, like, yeah, some artists, like some are like their public persona is like almost like an exaggerated version of themselves, you know? And sometimes it's that public persona is a bit far from who they really are.
Yeah.
And other times it's close. And I feel like it must, for people who are really playing a part and really protective of their image, it must get exhausting.
Right? Yeah.
Like, especially in today, and especially where today everything's about, authenticity and, like sharing so much of yourself, and kind of, I feel a little bit of just like over communicating, to be honest. But like, I feel like, I think like on Prince, was the greatest artist of our generation. I mean, and he was probably, I don't know if he was close to his public persona in his private life. He might have been.
Yeah.
But I just feel like that level of, when you're a real character like that level of, having to kind of keep up the image all the time, seems exhausting. And so, I feel like, in some ways I don't want to have to live my life like that,
Yeah. And it's amazing, right? Like now the refreshing thing from a musician is hearing a person be normal. I mean, I'm not going to lie, like you being like, look, I just want to hang out with my daughter and, watch a show and chill out. I think is far more exciting and, something that I enjoy to hear versus like, oh, well, I had to do this and then I was getting, and then I had to do another big meeting and movie premiere. And you're just like, I mean, I think people crave a level of normalcy far more than they want to see, glitz and glamour. But that's just me. Yeah.
The risk is sometimes people, they want their rock stars to be rock stars.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? The old idea of it is, just, this sex, drugs, rock and roll,
Yeah.
just kind of burn it out. But, at the end of the day, I think it's important to kind of have a balance where you're able to, kind of reset, have some sort of grounding situation. But then when you get out on stage and you're going to go out there, you got to unhinge a little bit. And I think that's inspiring too. You got to let it fly,
Yeah.
And that's where you got to let your crazy part out.
Yeah.
And whether people see it or not, or it's just that you're letting go in your own way, I feel like unconsciously it resonates. And so that, I think that's a lot. I'm always inspired by artists who've had lots of success. The ones who burned out early, they didn't have the balance, or something went wrong, or just bad luck or whatever, so they didn't get to the later chapter to continue. They made one or two amazing records and then they died, and so they're just forever frozen. They didn't get to fuck it up and come back or anything like that. They just they're gone, and so they have that first stamp that they had, and they're stuck in that forever. And that's that's a great thing, but it's also a sad thing in ways. But like the ones that really inspire me are the ones that like have long careers and they're able to find that balance, of making really interesting art, staying interesting, but also able to kind of shut it down and have a somewhat normal personal life. And I feel like that's like the full picture there. And I don't think I don't really romanticize like, this kind of like excess sort of thing, lifestyle anymore at all. And I don't know if I did as a young person either so much, I think some about it scared me, even though I dipped into it in some ways. But yeah, just like,
I mean, you got to interact with Peter Buck a bunch. Yeah. Was there any sort of wisdom that was kind of passed on to you from him?
Peter's like a real fan of music. He's always been I feel like someone who's just a pure music fan. He gets into all sorts of stuff, and he's always curious about stuff and new music and old music, and he really knows a lot about the history of a lot of bands and where they came from and the people who influenced the bands before that.
Right.
And I find, it makes me think it's important to stay curious, about things. People kind of get set in their ways and they get less interested in things because they think they've done it all before, they've seen it all, and that's fucking trap.
Yeah.
I think, and it's another, Michelangelo's, David, it's like you got to meet shit halfway. You got to fight to stay curious sometimes. And some people are naturally curious. I have friends who are just always so like, whoa, that's the greatest thing ever. Whoa. Not about my work in like things in life that they'll see. Like, and I'm like, that's like, and I would have a feeling like, man, I need some more of that, because sometimes you do get a little like, not jaded, but just, not as curious as you should be. So I think it's important to keep that up. I think that keeps you young. And I think, the less rules. So I thought of this too, as like, someone said something like getting old. And maybe it's I just turned 50 this summer. So I'm like thinking about
Hell
it.
yeah.
And I know in a few years, I'll look back and be like, 50's nothing, whatever. But I feel like this is true though. It's like as people get older, they make more rules. I see this tendency. There's just more rules like, oh, I can't get in. It's usually like fear based or just getting stuck in your routine, but it comes back to some sort of fear. And you just kind of box yourself in more and more and more and more and more until you're just like laying in bed, most of the day, always. And I find that fight to just no less rules. Like, no, there are no rules. Anything that starts to come up as a rule, just crush it right away, because I feel that'll just keep you much more open.
Yeah.
And much more keeps your curiosity open. And I think that's the fountain of youth right there, is to just not get set in your ways. So fight to be not set in your ways.
Yeah. So I take it you're a fan of Chappell Roan then?
I can't say I'm a fan or not a fan, because honestly, I don't know any of her music, but I do see she seems to be very popular. I haven't dug in. I should. Speaking of my own curiosity, I've been curious in other things, but I should check her out, because she seems to be, having her moment.
I kind of like, I'm that all these people are talking about it, and I just was like, I don't, there's a few people in my life that I admit, when they are the person telling me about a new thing, I embarrassingly am like, well, no, if you're the person telling me about the new thing, I don't want to, and I recognize the vanity, absurdity, whatever. But like, I was like, all right, fine, I'm going to check it out. And I listened to that Good Luck Babe song, and it is like, it's just a pop masterpiece. I mean, it's crazy. It's so good, and every aspect of it, from the energy and the emotion of it too. And I think everyone loves the fact that like she was dropped from her label from a specific song, and then she performed it on SNL as like a dunk to everyone, and everyone sang it back to her. And it's like everyone wants this sort of hero's journey story, and like she appears to be it. But
what's the song called?
It's called Good Luck Babe.
Okay, I'll go check that out.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear it and you're like, okay, this sounds like ABBA, but it's
okay.
It's fantastic. And it's, I think, I mean, I still love a classic pop song, but it's great. And I think, when you were talking about that, I started thinking of that, because I mean, I was just so annoyed with every single person telling me about her. When I was in Chicago during Lollapalooza for a separate event, and I think she had a show, and it was the largest single gathering for an individual artist at any Lollapalooza in history. There's like well over 110,000 people that she was performing for. And I'm like, good for her. I hope she's getting paid. She better be. But, I mean, that's, it's fantastic. And I think, sometimes like, having like a bit of a suspension of disbelief, like is nice. It's good.
I come from, I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's a lot of people, where, and I'm not like this anymore, but I used to be like, as a 7th grader, 8th grader, like as soon as something that I like that was like, under the radar, as soon as it became popular, I was like, oh, I'm not doing it anymore. Like,
yeah, me too.
And I don't even know what that's about. And so I forgot about that part of those days. But like, I would be like, as soon as something became too popular, a couple things, there was an override button for that, but a lot of things, like I would go the other way for whatever reason. I don't know what that is, but a lot of the pop music today, I love, like, if I think back, like I love all kinds of music, like I love, just many different genres.
Yeah.
And so much of, like, when I go like to run or walk, whatever, like my playlist is like mostly 80s pop music.
Hell
like,
yeah.
Like Whitney Houston, Madonna, Patti LaBelle, like, like I love all that stuff so much. And people would be surprised, I think, to feel like that's what he's listening to. Like, I'm listening all the time. Like, oh my gosh. But like, it's cool to see, like, my daughter, like, I didn't really know Taylor Swift music for the longest time, and but I've seen how between my nieces, who are like, one of my nieces is 24 now, and I have nieces who are like 15, and there's my daughter. I see how generationally, like, she hit them all.
Yeah,
like,
she did.
I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. That's no small feat,
Yeah.
And so like, there's so many songs of hers that I'm like, these are amazing songs, from various, generations of her, for various
Eras would be her term.
Eras, exactly. Eras. A lot of great music. Like,
Yeah.
this year, I do need to check out Chappell Roan.
Yeah.
I just finally got the Espresso song. I'm just
Sabrina.
there.
I just got that too. I was like, I'm not listening to that song, and I was like, all right, it's good. Sabrina Carpenter, way to go.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a fun pop song. I'm like, man, it took me forever to even understand what the lyrics were or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, I get what she's saying. I'm like, oh yeah, it's fun. And then and then they just become this thing, and it's a wild thing about pop, big hit songs like that. But there's a lot of talented people out there, and I wish everybody the best. I'm all in love with that.
That's great. Well, Pete, I want to be conscious of your time. So yeah, Pete, thank you so much for coming on. I'll talk to you soon.
Great to talk to you.
You've been listening to Blammo. Our show is produced by Blammo Media. We're edited by Amar Lowell, and our theme music, as always, by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. If you like what you heard, you know the drill. Share the pod with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever other thing you're listening to us on, whether it's Dingledorp or Bing Bong, whatever it's called. But you can also follow us on Instagram for all the hot content. If you want to talk to us and give us your hot take, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email at info@blamopod.com. Last but not least, super ultra important, if I had a air horn, I would press it right now. You got to come and join us over on Patreon, because the fun never stops over there. Look, the live show, the free show, whatever you want to call this, we take breaks here and there, but Patreon, it never stops. And we also got exclusive shows like Die Workwear, hosted by Derek Guy and Peter Zotolo, and the Triple J Show, hosted by yours truly with John Moy and Gene DeLeon. There's just a ton of stuff over there. So check it out at patreon.com/Blammo. If not, no worries. We got hundreds and hundreds of free episodes in the feed, and more to come. So we will see you all soon.